Hi guys! Guess what? We're filming a few on the same day. So I'm in the same outfit and we're still in a bit of a disarray. We're filming from Wilco's today and I'm working with... What am I working with today? I do know this. I'm working with acrylic paints. That cost me £2.75. And some paintbrushes, a palette, which I got one of. I only brought it once, simply because I wasn't going to buy multiple palettes, since all the pretty cheap stores I entered sold the same kind of palette. And I brought, what else did I buy that I'm using? I know what, canvases. Pack of 4 canvases for £5. I already mentioned the paintbrushes, which is showing me in the corner. They cost me £1.75. I'm going to be working with all them today. I also have some watercolour pencils and watercolour paper, which I'll be working with on the next video or the one after. As with V&M, I've split the video into 2 halves, simply for my own sanity. I'm saying because I can't do 2 art pieces in one video, but this one kind of went off on a tangent. You'll see why, and if you've been watching Twitter and Instagram, you'll know why. It wasn't intended to go off on a tangent. It's because of a property I found out within this paint that, well, you don't expect when you're looking at acrylic paint in the first place. Up on Twitter, you've got to guess which one was the high-end and the low-end piece of art that was done. I wonder if any of you actually were watching today actually managed to figure out which one it was. If any of you did, please let me know in the comments if you actually got it right or wrong. Apart from that, any of you figure out which medium I was actually painting with for both supplies. That one, I'll be intrigued. So anyway, apart from that, let's get on with the video. I'll see you on the flip side. No, 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 no. Wahaha. Haha. He's tiny, but he's going to take over the universe. Hi guys. Okay, so my husband may have caught me playing with my little fidget, which is from Fantastic Beasts. And put it on film. So, sorry. There may have to be a second. But I'm showing you here why one of these was broken. As you saw, I was checking how soft one was. One of them was hot, one wasn't. And therefore it was causing a lot of problems. And here, it's the testing brushes. These are synthetic brushes compared to my other brushes, which are made with usually animal hairs. I normally get horsehair, I believe, and is sable hair? What is horsehair? Yeah, sable hair or mink hair brushes. Humanely made. I am always exceptionally careful to make sure I get humanely caught and made brushes, but it makes a very different feel to the end of the brushes, how they are to paint with, and so forth. I didn't start using that style of brush, but as I progressed in my painting, I noticed a massive difference. Now there's also a difference here in how they are. I mean, you can see length by length, these are both the exact same brushes, but there's just a big difference to how these brushes feel in the hand. The plastic handles versus a more weightier wood handle. It gives you a lot more control and it's a lot easier to work with. So, they are, however, only £1.75 for the pack, which is cheaper than I would have got one of my brushes for. And so yeah, I could have got 4 packs for one of my brushes. I invest in brushes, but I expect them to last me a hell of a long time. And I will show you later. One of these broke during filming. Whether I catch that point while I'm talking, one of them literally, the head snapped during filming. So, and it was simply while rinsing it and wiping the end, it literally just snapped. So, whereas mine, I bought some of mine 1.5 to 2 years ago, and they're still not even showing their age. So I bought a plastic palette. Now I do have some, I usually use a ceramic palette. This one I picked up just simply because I wanted to show you what kind are out there. I'm careful about plastic waste anyway, so I'm only going to buy one throughout this entire cheap versus cheap stores use. I actually do have other plastic palettes anyway, however, that I've got from the past. These are completely reusable, so there we go. And the paints, they are acrylic paints. They cost me £2.75 for all those colours, which if they work brilliantly well, which you'll see soon, that's fantastic. You'll see that I've actually had a picture up of cheap versus expensive on my Twitter and my Instagram all week. Oh, since I filmed this, so midweek. Asking you to guess which ones were which of the pieces of art that were produced from this. So the pieces of art that I produced were actually quite similar. I actually ended up doing two, so you're gonna get two pieces done today. There's a reason for that. You'll see join the swatching. I'm gonna go a little bit forward in the swatching so I can explain why. But there's one thing I'm going to comment straight away here before I do. There is no streakiness in this colour that you would normally expect, which is kind of cool for very low end paint. But let's go forward a bit. Right guys, there's a few things to talk about here. One is how flat the colours on the left look. By flat I mean they're matte. Very weird for acrylic. They're usually more glossy. If you think about how you buy paints for normal everyday use when you go shopping, acrylics usually fall in the more glossy side. I put some acrylics on the left. I'm going to be trying to match them. Well, not trying to match the colours exactly because I was being a little lazy with it, as you can see here. You can see also some of the lighter colours weren't as dynamic on the left and the right hand side. Yellow and the white, they kind of got lost a little in the woods. The white particularly was very watery. But there's one distinct difference, and that was how these colours started to dry, and it became very strange because these colours blended very like more like gouache paints blended than acrylics paint blended, which is a different medium. It's more, they work very much like paints that are in between acrylics and water paints. Very fun and cool to use, and I've never seen a £2.75 pack, which is kind of cool. Now I'm not saying this is a massive, high-end £2.75 pack, but it still caught me off guard. I was expecting to have acrylic paints, and these weren't looking like acrylics. So by the time I get to a certain point, I decided to swatch some wash paint alongside, and we're going to go forward a little bit and see what happens there. Right guys, so here you see the gouache going down. Now you can see how vibrant these colours actually are. They are, as my husband was just pointing out, they're super pigmented. The colours are exceptionally flat. They are so interesting to work with. They are like nothing else when it comes to paints. And the colours on the left, they are not quite like full gouache, but they're not like acrylics neither, which is weird. They're too watery to be like a full gouache paint, making them a bit more like a watercolour. But if I water them down to be like a watercolour, they wouldn't work. They don't hold colour at all, and they don't do anything. I tried that later on. However, they have no shine to them at all, and they act as flat, even though they're not as pigmented as the colours on the right. And that is exceptionally interesting. And it gave me an idea to try something interesting. And that was to do, rather than just stick to the cheap versus the cheap, ended up going to do a HIMI Gouache, which is what we're working on the left, which for those of you who haven't seen that worked with before, it's £29.99 in English pounds. Gouache paint. It's technically, I think, falls within the mid-range, but it's very highly recommended. I've had this pack for a long time, and you'll see that when I put it on the desk, some of the colours may have run into each other, but it's still completely wet. It's been open for nearly a year, I'd say, and it still works just as well as when I first opened it and first poured the paints out, which is completely cool and amazing. It's one of the really brilliant things I love about this paint. So that's gouache paint, and that's what we're actually going to do. We're not just going to look at how this paint works, we're going to also look at how I'm going to be painting identical paintings, or as close to identical as these both allow me to do. I was intending on just doing a gingerbread house in the end, but anyone that's seen the picture, that evolved in my mind as I was painting, as quite often happens when I paint something. Sometimes an idea evolves and I decide, you know what, this could go somewhere else and it'll look really nice if I do so. In fact, a song that was on in the background made me think, and my kids singing certain songs made me want to go further. So the idea grew. So we're going to go onto the painting, and we're working with two colours that are both very flat, which means I'm going to have to work really hard to make these paintings appear and have the lights and the shadows. But yeah, you can see the bits that have already dried. You can see the reflections in the middle, there you go, and the complete flat and lack of reflections on the other two sides, which is what gives them two a similarity. How cool is that? Rather cool indeed. So let's go with the painting. And yeah, there's a bit of an apology here. I stopped recording by complete accident. That wasn't intended. This is the cheap side. I clicked pause because we had visitors and forgot I'd done so. So you miss a little bit of the recording. But as you can see, we started with a gingerbread house. It's a cool gingerbread house. And we're going to go from here. The first one is the paint is going down actually rather well, except for when I start to add white. White was the issue all along with this, as I began to figure out. And it became rather frustrating. So, but I'm going to go forward a bit and let you watch some of the painting now. Right guys, so this is where my change of plan had started to actually come into play. I'd heard my kid Christmas caroling, and I thought I could actually make a play on a knitted gingerbread house and turn it into a bit of a nativity style scene. I thought it'd be a bit of a cool crossover of things. So yeah, I thought it would be a little interesting. You can see the white here, I'm having to stipple it on rather than actually put it on as whole big streaks. So it's the only way we're actually getting any visibility with it. But I thought by using some of the more what are classically seen as trappings, and it's not how I actually see it, but trappings of Christmas, and doing it with the actual reason classically for Christmas. Now I am actually Christian, by the way, before anyone thinks I'm taking the mick or anything like that, but I thought by merging the two it would be actually quite an interesting image, and turning this into a stable, the side where we actually had baby Jesus with Mary and Joseph and an angel bursting out the door open to welcome anyone in. I thought it would be a very interesting crossover of the two. Now I also don't have an issue with any of the trappings, by the way. I love Christmas. I am one of the biggest kids out there. My husband's he's one of the biggest Grinches, by the way. He hates Christmas. It's so sad. We try every year to make him love it. We really do. But yeah, only does make him hate it more. You got any Grinches in your houses, guys, that really hate Christmas, and you really want to try and, you know, get them involved? But we've got our kid over this Christmas. Well, obviously over this Christmas, she's 7, but we've got my best friend and their 2 over as well, so we've got a full house this Christmas. So, you know, you kind of have to have fun. There's going to be 3 kids in the house. Christmas, you know, fun. Anyway, so started to add these on, and you can see that these colours are actually layering quite well with themselves. They're actually working really well. The only colour I had massive issues with was the white, and mixing them with each other, the darker colours did really well to achieve this. And I could lighten things with the yellow, which there just wasn't enough. There wasn't some of the vibrant colours because I was limited by the size of the set, which is the set's fault, obviously, but it's just how it is. Other than that, you can see it was coming along really well, and it started to build this really nice little house. So I'm going to go back and we'll continue. Right, so I did the star, which didn't go perfectly, but I gave up trying to correct it, so it's a wonky star. And simply because, yeah, again, white paint. One of the other issues I was having with these paintbrushes, though, is I had no detailing brushes, and that does not explain this star, though, unfortunately. But I would have gone in and corrected it and everything, probably, if I wasn't getting so frustrated by this point. You can see the white paint has actually gone quite well on over the black, though. It was one of the only places it did seem to want to go quite well over, which is ironic in its own little way. Yeah. So, but it looks like it goes quite well, and then it dries. But I had no detailing brushes, so every time, yeah, it was too easy to make little mistakes. So I had to let it dry and then try and fix it, and let it dry and fix it. And I just got, in fairness, a little bit frustrated with it in the end. But I kept trying for a while. And the angel was another one. The angel in the second one is a lot better formed. She has more body shape and everything, which I do try to give this one to and keep adding. But every time I try, it just didn't seem to work because, yet again, there's no fine detail brushes in sets like this, which really can hamstring you even as a beginner artist. So as a beginner artist, you can get like nail artistry brushes, which are really cheap but have these really fine detail little brushes in. So if you're wanting to be able to add little details to your art, go to the nails section and buy yourself a small pack of them just to add the little fine details. It really helps when you're starting out with art and you're not breaking the bank by buying that style. It's a little hint, but I actually used some of them when I was starting out, and it helped me learn to do some of those fine details within my artwork. So it's an idea. Or go get some model painting brushes. I've used them as well. There, again, you can buy a pack of them for like a tenner, and again, they will help you with some of these finer details, like this is small figures I'm doing at the side for Mary and Joseph. And I'm going to show you in the next picture just the difference it makes having that style of brush to use. So let's continue. Okay guys, sorry if there was a little skip there. There's been a few in this video. But here's the end result on this one, on near the end result. You can see that I've put some northern lights up. The angel's been formed as well as I could do. And the moon has got a lot more flaws than you can see. That's about 5 layers of white. The star ended up having yellow within it because it's the best way. It stopped winding me up, and yeah, it really was the best way. It stopped winding me up as well because it drove me a little bit to distraction. And then I started adding some of the extra colours to the side, and to these little, some of these little accents and shadows that I'm adding here. These add the depth. And now you can see I'm adding like a more purple reddy colour over the top rather than going with a deep brown. It actually adds a little bit more depth. Now, I'm not 100% on colour theory, not the art channel to look at. I'm doing my studying to learn about it. I don't fully know about it. So I know it works and I know it looks good. And that's about as far as I go. But yeah. And I've got to go on the green, I've got more of a dark purpley to accent and deepen the colours there. And if I was going over red, I would be adding a different colour. I think it's blue I add onto red, and so forth. I know what works, I know what I like, and that's as far as I go. But it adds shadows, adds effects, and it adds depth to your work. Anyway, this is when the hay inside the stable wasn't working because I didn't have the right shades, and mixing the right shades of orange didn't work. So I decided to go for the like kind of same burst I wanted to do with the angel. It wasn't working as fully as I wanted, but it still made a nice effect. The star still bugs me, but apart from that, I ended up being quite impressed with how this piece of art turned out. I'm using yellow as the highlights. It's been my signature throughout Christmas. And Jazza actually did a piece where he actually showed reasons for use of yellow, stealing one of my key ways of doing things. No, it can't be. It's actually one of the core ways of doing it. But he actually did it. I often use yellows or purples or light blues as my accent, depending on the style of piece I'm doing. Jazza won't have stolen anything. It's one of the key ways we actually do highlight things, and he's absolutely perfectly right with doing so. Whatever light colour you decide to use, depending on the mood, yellows is one of the ways of showing a softer piece of work. Light blues makes a piece of work look a lot cooler, and it takes a bit of a sharper edge, and light purples, it works for a wintry scene, and I've used light greys even before in the past if I want the scene to be more muted. So there you go. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there and we'll go on to the next piece. Right, so this is pretty much the end of this piece. I'll show it to you in a second. I'm still trying on that moon. I swear that moon just drove me absolutely to distraction. This kept lifting white back up as well, as you can see, which was a flaw of this particular one. You went over it, the colour lifted back off. I in the end gave up on it, and yeah. But overall, this paint, it was a million times better than I could have even expected for paint at this price. And for anybody learning, yeah, amazing. The colours muted a little bit more in the sky than I wanted, especially for doing Northern Lights, but I couldn't have been more happy with the end piece of this work and how it showed up. I hope you've enjoyed watching this one, and yeah, that moon and that star, they were my little bit names, and working with the white. If the white was just a little bit stronger, I would have been so much happier. What was that? Yeah, I was shouting and swearing about white because it was upsetting me, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to my work, and I couldn't make that work no matter how hard I try. When it was finished though, it did prove to me how flat this was. This was completely flat when it dried, which for acrylic paint it just never turns out this way. But yeah, there we go. This was me in the end deciding it was finished, and we are going to move on then on to working with HIMI paints to replicate this piece of art. So that's this one, and here we go on to the HIMIs. That's what the paint tray looks like. You get to see this next to it, and since you get to see the beginning, I'm going to let you watch the sketch and pass. One beautiful thing about this is I had my brushes back, which means I had a fan brush, and these colours are a lot more vibrant. As you can see, I did the sky in a midnight style blue, so it wasn't actually pitch black, which is actually a nice way to do skyline. I also had kind of detail brushes to go around, and I could actually try and make an Northern Lights style effect look a little bit more colourful, and the colours hold in this one. The blending is a little bit better with these ones, being as these are actually gouache paints than the others. However, the blending on the others was still out of this world for the price of the packet, and for what they are, the blending was still amazing. And the fact that the blending was still working after they'd dried, and yeah, I was still super impressed with them. But this is the difference of the experience of working with gouache paint and putting that skyline down. It's still rather cool. So I'm just going to get this skyline put on first, and if I'd realised I was going to do this, by the way, with the first piece of artwork, it would have been the first thing that went down. This wasn't something intended. Now I'm copying a piece of art. It just makes sense for it to be put on straight away. But having that fan brush and having these brushes that are specially made to do certain tools and to do certain things, it just helps. That's their job. So I can make sure I utilise them and I'm not working with brushes that are going to break on me. But look at those colours now. It's just, that green, I absolutely adore that green. It's just absolutely so striking. It adds such vibrancy to the piece. So yeah, that was the first thing I wanted to talk to you about in this one, is how I could create such a skyline that just adds so much more to the piece than the other one. But let's continue on. So I'm going to talk a bit about how I've drawn this tree this time, which is I make sure I go forward to both sides and then to the front, both sides, and then do a line to the front and then step down again. It's a really easy, cheap way to do a pine tree, especially when you're going to add the shadowing and shading and the lights in afterwards. As it is a really super easy, cheap way to do one, but it is also exceptionally effective. It obviously at this point doesn't look fab, but because you make sure you've got the front line drawn in as well as both the sides, you're adding the body that naturally falls. Now this is what's known as your underlayer of your painting, is the dark colour I've drawn on here, as is a lot of what's already down. These are like kind of your base colours. You're planning on drawing over them, adding more colour to them. So as they show right now, they are going to be your final effect. Official proper term for it is underpainting. A lot of paintings have them. They add the core to it, and then you add more layers to the top, different colours as I'm doing here, and each layer adds a bit more to it. So yeah, see, I'm adding a bit of a darker blue in, and then that starts to slowly go in and merge and add a little bit more shadow to the tree as a whole. Now I would then go like that, have a bit of time to dry generally before I worked a bit more on it, and would come back to it and do a bit more work on it, adding lighter colours and so forth. But already just by adding those 3 tones, I don't know if I actually do any lighter tones yet. No, you see. You leave it for a period to dry before you come back, which is why I then go step over to work on a different bit, which I'd already done some of the underpainting on, that I can then extend some of it and go from there onwards. I'll come back to the tree later and talk through the next bit of work I've done on it. You can see I've built the framework of the house already, which I've done in the candy canes, and we've got the roof, and we'd go and then we've got the icing lines, which is where our icicles would step out of. We've got our door that's open, our fairy outline's already drawn with her wings that are down, fairy, angel, wings that are down, ready for her to burst out. We've got our shadows going the right way because the moon dictates on the direction of which our shadows would fall. But yeah, there you go. Let's go and see what else we can find. Right, that's the first bit going on to the angel here, and that's the white showing how well this is working compared to the other. And it's just layering on absolutely perfectly. And then straight back onto the tree, adding the snow. And this first bit of snow will cover a lot of the tree. You're looking at the bits of the branches it goes onto. Now this yet again, you'll be coming back onto and changing a lot of this, and still won't be completely finished on your tree. And remembering your branches go in all directions. You don't just want to do them to the side, you need to make sure you go all the way, because it's how a tree works. And with gouache, it will try and blend with the colour underneath. It will reactivate itself if it gets too watery, because gouache does that. So you always need to be careful, because you can see it's mixing to green. So you may need to put a couple of layers on, because it's made to blend with itself. So then we're going to come in and try and make some of this a little deeper. I don't know if I'll go again back to the tree. I'll give it a bit more time. But here we are with our beautiful tree, looking even more Christmassy than it was last time. Nope, we're going to go, I think, to adding some of the more contrast to our angel. Yeah. Here are her hands. It's not showing up very well on the camera yet. It will do. And her face. You can see I'm using a fine brush here, and how I'm able to actually form shapes a lot easier and a lot clearer than I was last time, because I've got a fine detailing brush. So I'm going to go forward a bit again, and we'll continue on. So I've talked before about how important it is about how, when you're creating 3D on 3D effects when you're doing your shadows. But in here I needed to create an interior wall, and that's a very different effect. That line needs to be identical to your exterior wall line as it goes along. Now unfortunately I've managed to slip even with a new camera, which I am going to improve with over time, but that line, interior line that I'm about to paint here, the best way to judge it is to make sure that it is completely and utterly straight with the line where at the very front of your page. If you manage to make them lines identical, then any interior wall that is going in that direction, so it pretty much the back wall is the same. Any interior wall that is going in the same direction as the side walls, or the one we currently can't see, would need to be straight with the one where we have pretty much a wall that's been removed. And they're really important rules, and they're ones that took me a hell of a long time to master, because buildings were something that I struggled with for such a long time, and learning those rules when it came to drawing buildings, they were one of my biggest weaknesses. So that way, it's just one of those tips I can pass on, and hopefully it'll give you a bit of a hand if you're ever building buildings. One of the other tips I gathered was, if you're looking at something, yeah, I'll share some of the other tips in another video, but that's one of my biggest ones, so I'll leave you with that. And you can see, look, as I'm doing the white here, they look so much more distinct than the ones in the last one. But yeah, there we go. Right guys, so we're back to the tree. Now I'm adding some yellow highlights, which, as I said in the last one, this is what I use to soften scenes, which is what I want to do to this scene. It's a very, very old trick. and one as I've used throughout my Christmas art scene, Christmas art series, and it works exceptionally well. Yeah, that's about all I can say about that. The Christmas tree, as you can see, with the layers that are built up on it, has slowly built up from this underpainting where it looked kind of, well, it looked like it had been painted. It was very one-dimensional. It's slowly grown into this really nice tree itself. And last time, by the way, when I mentioned in this first one about Jazza and him mentioning this, got some really cool news. I have my Jazza's illustration box. It came through the post. So the next video is going to be me painting one of my Christmas pieces. And it's going to be painted using his illustration box tools. So we're going to be taking a break on this, but we're going to be sticking with the Christmas art. Now I will be trying to do one of his pieces of art as well. That'll be going on my Instagram, but I will do a video of that. It'll just be after Christmas. Because we're sticking with Christmas art through the season. The next few will be with that, but we can use Jazza's illustration tools since the box is all about illustration, and that will be coming up for the next video, so that should be really cool, guys. I hope you'll look forward to seeing that as much as I'm looking forward to drawing it. Anyway, back to this. So, yeah, the moon, you can see, hasn't taken me driven me around the bend anywhere near as much as last time. It's looking a lot clearer and way more fun. And my husband's passing me my Jazza box in case any of you didn't know what it is. Jazza's Pro Art Series box. That's what I was talking about. It's been all over his channel and some of the other big artist channels. Now I'm a very, very small channel, but I still cannot wait to open it, and I hope some of you that know who he is can't wait to see it and do it with me. But anyway, me being excited like a child at Christmas, because this is pretty much, yeah, what I am over this. I will be opening this and starting to film this as soon as my camera has taken this off, so this can go over next. But this is, yeah, I've lost my train of thought now, so we're talking about this, and I'm very excited about filming that one. And I've got a really cool idea of what I'm going to film as well. The moon looks so much more vibrant. That white is just, it looks like it's actually shining. And yeah, I loved working with these paints, by the way. The first time I tried it on this channel, using the wash paints, I actually really struggled painting with them. I wasn't aware how to use them properly, and I was still quite young at this kind of painting. This time, I really enjoyed painting with them. And I've learned a lot about art, and I've learned a lot about my own abilities. And in the last year, I've grown a lot within my art. So this time, it's a million times better. And this is where the detailing brush, by the way, comes into play with these characters and painting any characters that are in small. So if you're ever doing a piece with people in and they're in smaller focus, then you need some form of detailing brush. Now, I'm not painting facial features on this particular piece of art because people know who Mary and Joseph are just by the fact that you've got blue, you've got a stable, you've got an angel bursting out. That scene is so iconic over Christmas that people know exactly what that scene is. You shouldn't need to do any more to it to make it clear. However, if I was adding facial features, I would use an even finer brush to achieve that. I'm going to go forward and show you how I do the stars on this one, because this is obviously not going to be my spray technique with a toothbrush, otherwise I'd have run it earlier on. And then, yeah, we'll see if the other thing I did, which was a little bit different, comes in screen or not, because right now you're not going to see it. So let's go forward a bit. So these, my star turned out way better because it's like I remembered how to actually paint stars in that last. I don't know what happened last time. I really can't explain. I've given a yellow hue to the star and to the moon, of course. Then it's on to doing the rest of the stars, which I use one of these, which I'm going to push forward a little bit to you. It's called a dotting tool. They have different sizes on each end, and they are dirt cheap. I've got many of them, but they are perfect for doing this. Making snow scenes, star scenes, anything like that. And as you can see, it's how I made stars on both of them. And yeah. Oh, I also tried to flatten out that rooftop because with a pen, but simply because the roof line wasn't showing as clear. So I think I added a bit of purple to it in the end to try and get a bit of definition in. But the stars, that was the one thing I wanted to come on to and show you is how they were done, which is this. A really cool little tool that is easy and anyone can use. So there you go. Let's move on to the end. Let you watch the end of this and then we can go. Oh yeah, the brushing on the app, I did it with very minimal for both the front, which you'll see at the end, and the other. I used a very large flat brush, this brush here. I got very little paint on it and then just brushed forward like that. And it makes that really cool effect, burst effect. But to do that, you need very, very little paint. It works well with acrylics to achieve that same effect as well. So, but it looks really cool if you want to make something look like it's bursting out somewhere. So there you go. Let's get this to the end and we'll see how they look next to each other. Right guys, so this is both pieces together, and which one do you prefer? One's brighter than the other, one's, in my opinion, better than the other. I am going to have my preferences, but that's my opinion. And that may be because one was easier to make than the other, took less time and effort. However, they both have their strong points and weak points. I prefer the ground actually on the left hand side, but I prefer the sky and most definitively on the right. So here's, by the way, I forgot to add them in, so I'm going to add them here. Leave me your opinions in the comments. If you like this, please do give me a like please do subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell, all the YouTube stuff that's out there, and I'll see you next time. Stay safe and well guys. Remember, next time it's Jazza, so please do come around and watch it. Bye. A little bit easier with you actually queuing. I know where it gives it.
Forget that you can't see the numbers easily.
Yeah.
The numbers are literally here.
So it lets me know the kind.
Reference.
I cannot see that at all.
That number there is the.
I cannot see that whatsoever. It's like little dots and dashes. If we could film the intro to this now while that's set up, at least then when you do come back and when you've done, I can just put this up. Say hello to my little friend. No, 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 no.